everybody. Good morning. Good morning. And if I didn't see you yesterday, good afternoon, good evening, good night. But now it's morning and the sun has risen and the world has not ended once again, which is really good news. I'm going to send you my screen right now so you can get into my brain. Careful. It's a scary place. It's a scary place, but not a bad place. Not a bad place. A good deal of the time. Okay. So let's take a look. Let me get all you beautiful people on here just to make sure I can see what you guys are doing and saying. Yes. So first of all, I am Hans Albrecht. I am a very experienced trader, options trader. I was an options market maker for 15 years, trading pro on the floor, only making money, only getting a check if I made profits. That is how you learn this game. It is not prognosticating. It is not being a macro person like whomever, some of these people on TV who just get their nice big fat salaries, but I had to make money in order to get a check. And I'll tell you what, that lights a fire under your feet. And that is trial by fire. Got it. Take a look here. So let's take a look at who have we got here? Z, Nina, good morning. WNA, Alejandro, Johnny P, go Blue Jays. I agree. Go Jays. As long as it's under my feet. That's right. Well, when the fire's under your feet, you dance. You dance. You move your feet, right? And that's something that I often tell. That's actually something that I often tell students. I say, look, sometimes you got to move your feet, which means don't be a deer in the headlights. Don't just kind of freeze up with markets. And that goes both ways, right? Lately, we've seen a lot of people sort of negative, looking at this market in disbelief and missing a lot of the upside, not realizing that this is a very positive backdrop from many standpoints. Now we do have some banking issues rearing their ugly head again, the sort of shades of a few years ago when we had the banking issues, and that's playing into a couple of things, right? IWM has regional banks in it. It's got that broadening. So I like the broadening theme, but for the moment, the vol genie is out of the bottle, right? So what did we have for the longest time? We had just incredible strength, incredible strength, a tech rally that we have not seen in decades, basically. And that I don't think we had a down 1% day in a couple of months. I don't think we had a down 2% day in many months. And that's exceptional. That's exceptional strength, right? That's where you kind of feel, if you're playing from the bull side, you're feeling a bit invincible. You don't even get a day where it kind of, knocks you down a little bit, right? Kind of gives you pause. When things are just kind of bouncing every time, you don't get more than one day of down. There's no follow through. You get that confidence. So what's happened lately? Well, we've got a little bit more nervousness. So I've talked about this on shows before, where if you look at, and I mentioned this on a Ticker Highlight Show, and I want to show you guys a little bit of what's happening in the world of volatility. So I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I said, listen, there are downside crashes and there are upside crashes. And I want to show you how this looks from a reality standpoint. So as option traders, we look at not just short-term option pricing, we look at medium-term, long-term, if you want to really get a big picture of what's going on out there. So we can see, if you take, for example, and a lot of things look like this. You know what? Micron's a little bit more extreme because I think it has that explosive potential. It's a little bit more along my non-negotiables theme. I talk about these themes that are very strong because the government's got to get involved. this new world of AI is at some point we're going to run into trouble. I said this. I put out a video and I said, listen, USAR, for example, is one of those names that is just the government has to get involved. Either they buy a piece, they give them support financially, or they give them support quietly, right on the side, and they go, yeah, you know what you're doing is not environmentally friendly, but we need some freaking rare earths and we need them in a hurry, right? So I said that the very same night, the government announced that they're getting involved, and turbo income traders made a ton overnight. We made 100+%. Somebody made 600% on a position that they put on USAR. So timing's everything. But the idea is that we do not want to forget about some of those things. Andrew talks about them. Frank talks about them. Mark talks about them. Leisha talks about them. We all talk about these sort of must watch areas. It doesn't mean they're not going to get a little bit excited and exuberant at times, but it means that they should be on your radar screen, right? These kinds of things need to be in your at least peripheral focus, because they are so important. We are moving towards a reality where people may not play as nice, and we're seeing that with China. Oh, you don't no rare earths for you, right? Remember the soup Nazi and Seinfeld? No soup for you. Well, no rare earths for you, unless you play ball with us, right? So it's going to be, there's a negotiation going on here. The art of the deal works both ways. China knows what power they yield. We make most of our important chips, like, what is it, 80 miles off the coast of China. Some of the most important, sophisticated chips, the vast majority of them are made 80 miles off the coast of China on an island that China considers part of China. China controls the vast majority of rare earths. Without rare earths, there is no AI development. There's no deeper AI development. There's that has trouble continuing. These are non-negotiables. These are things that have to be on our radar screens if we are going to be successful traders and investors, etc. And we're going to play the ebb and the flow. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, Joe, I've taken some wins in USAR, and I took some of those wins a little bit early. I didn't think it would rush to 40 something. But what's happened in many of those names is you've had this big option pricing expansion, and that kind of complicates things. So for those of you out there who don't hear people talk about option pricing as much, there's so much more to buying and selling calls and puts and spreads and things like that than just simply point and click. You've got to sort of look under the hood. What's going on? I'm going to show you something. Look at Amazon right here. So here is 60-day option pricing. What does that mean? Well, if you go out 2 months, what are you going to pay for Amazon options? We know on Tesla, we're going to pay a whole bunch for options. On Apple, we're not going to pay very much. And Amazon's probably, not halfway between, but somewhere in between towards the lower end. And we can see that at times, look at April. This April, what happened in April? Anybody remember? Or was anybody like on vacation? I had a couple of clients who were on vacation. They came back and they're like, what happened? What happened in April? Liberation Day. Do you remember when we got liberated from our money, from our long positions? That was Liberation Day. Yeah. Tariff tantrum, exactly, Vicky. We had a tariff tantrum, and it looked like Trump was going to send us over the cliff towards global slowdown in a big way. And then we had the flinch, and then we had more flinches, and then we started this march that was in large part driven by AI. We had a bounce back in many areas, but it was largely driven by what I have been talking about. If any of you guys did that special situations thing that I did about 3 months ago, we made a whole bunch of money on those positions. I talked about the importance of inference. Nobody was really talking about it. And I said, you guys don't understand how big this is. If you think this is just a fancy chatbot or this is .com, it is 1,000 times bigger than what happened in the internet age, in the .com age. This is massive. Why? Because this is a layer technology. This isn't saying blockchain is going to help you with a couple of things, although that's maybe a bit more layer. But this isn't saying, giving you access to e-commerce is going to blow your mind. This is saying that AI is now going to work into everything, right? The agentic AI boom has now begun. You can see it. ChatGPT said, we're bringing in Figma. We're bringing in all these apps that are going to now help you develop things and create your own agentic AI applications. You think that's going to move the needle throughout the world? So anybody who's an AI bear we have to always make that distinction, right? There's AI market bear, and sure, things can get overdone. And that's why I've moved to a lot of cash in that last couple of weeks. There's stocks, but then there's the reality of it. So if you think AI is a bubble itself, you may need to rethink that. It is absolutely not a bubble. We don't know how it's going to play out. But look at this. In the tariff tantrum, we had a big crash down in stocks. And guess what? Option prices went bananas. Then back here, if you guys have been watching our shows, I pray to God you've been watching Ticker Highlight and all of our shows, because we just give you guys gold. It's unbelievable for free. I said, it's too cheap. It's too cheap. You're going to make money 3 different ways. You're going to make money on Delta. You're going to make money on Vega, which is option prices going up. You're going to make money on Skew, which is out of the money calls going bananas. You made money on all 3. 3 ways to win. How good is that when you're talking about option prices? I said, these are not pricing in what could happen in the world. We don't know exactly what's going to happen in the world, but we know it's going to be disruptive. We know there are going to be strong companies that suddenly really struggle. We know that there are going to be companies that grasp AI better than others and suddenly, improve profit margins. So imagine being an analyst right now. How do you have a clue what's going to happen next year or the year after? You have no clue. You have no clue. That's why there has to be option pricing that takes into account that uncertainty, that excitement, that regime changing reality that is AI inference and agentic AI. And people being able to just put in a prompt and say, make me an app that does this. You could do that already. You could say, here, make me an app that does this. That is going to create a level of innovation we have never seen. Ever in history, not even close. We are going to see, because why? Because you're democratizing skills that used to be held by a few. You have people who can code, who can use R, who can use Jesus, I can't even remember all the names, who can use all these incredible tools, and they have an advantage. Now everybody can start to create. Python. What am I doing? I did a whole bunch of Python courses. So all this amazing stuff is going to be now, are we going to create a lot of crap, what we call slop? Yeah, there's no question. But look at what's happened here. We've gone from crash down option reactions to crash up option reactions. And some stocks, this is not a small stock. Is this Oklo or SMR or RCAT? No, this is happening everywhere. And that's exactly what I said in the special situations. I said, look at this inverted call skew chart. This is about to spread to the wider market. And that's exactly what's happened. So now what do? Well, now we have to be a little bit more careful, a little bit more targeted. We've got to use spreads. We've got to use things that kind of make a little bit more sense. But I think option pricing is up here for a reason. When you see, let me show you something even more interesting. What do we look at? When we're option traders, what do we want to think about? We're sentiment traders, right? We're not just trading some arbitrary number based on another number. This is a derivative based on an underlying, Amazon, Microsoft, whatever it is. You are trading sentiment. You're trading the market's collective sentiment on something, fear, greed, and everything in between. So when I look at long-term option pricing, look at this. 1-year option pricing is exploding. It's exploding. Let me take a look at it on Micron, which is a stock I love. We made a bunch of money on that in Turbo Income, which we're killing it on. We just closed like our 10th long-term call position, 10 in a row. We haven't had a loser in the leaps. And we're killing it on so many positions. So look at this. This is your Micron at, let's go at the money, right? That's your at the money option. Okay. Anything to see here? Is there anything unusual about the right side of this chart? Because that's option pricing at the 1 year mark that usually doesn't care all that much. 1 year options are like, who plays? Who plays 1 year? Some people, me, but most people like to trade 0 DT, 1 DT, 1 week, 1 month, 3 month. Nobody's playing out there. Look what's happened to long term. This is a sign that something significant and durable is happening in the world. Part of it is the melt up. But why is there a melt up? Because the world is changing. This is absolutely key. And I'm not saying it's all in great ways. We see what's happening with jobs, right? We see what's happening with jobs. Why don't we take a quick look here? Where's my little, nope, not that one. Here we go. So here it is, spot up, vol up. That's just kind of option geek talk for the VIX has been going up with the market. The VIX went up 5 yesterday, I think it was, on an 80 point move in the SPY. That's massive. That's a massive VIX move, right? So we're starting to incorporate something into pricing that is not just about the world changing. It's now about a little bit of this worry about contagion, credit contagion, things like that. I'm not saying that's something to ignore. In fact, I think it's something to watch very, very carefully, because if we start to sell off in a significant way, you could get a little bit of snowballing, right? So this is, for example, these are leverage ETFs, vol control. So you don't have to know too much about those products, but they're systematic, right? I call them the Terminator systematic trades out there. They're hundreds of times bigger than they used to be. So they matter. They didn't matter at some point. Now these are, look at this, AUM in the levered stuff, the double, the triple, they just came out with 5 times ETFs, 5 times levered ETFs. That's going to play into this. That's going to make this worse. So we're going to have a world where things are either kind of really calm or potentially all hell breaking loose. And we call that volatility clustering. So this is our new reality. We have to understand the sandbox that we're playing in now. It's driven by a lot of this sort of nonsense. I use nonsense as a very loose word, but stuff that's happening under the hood. And we have to be aware of that. Now, there are products like vol targeting. Look at this. They got out in April. So if you guys don't know, I've been talking about this on every show almost. The smart money did very poorly. The retail money did great. The smart, sophisticated retail money that watches Option Pit did great because we've been playing this entire bounce back. We've gone from all the smart money being totally out of the market in April to, now they're full on in. That's what gives me a little bit of pause here, right? So of course I'm positive on AI and everything, but what's happening now is we've released the vol genie, right? The vol genie's come out of the bottle, and we now have a lot of things, even though corporate buybacks are still strong, we have this sort of a little bit, I wouldn't call it exuberance because they don't have a choice in the matter, but you no longer have. Back when this was happening a couple months ago, I said, no, there's still more upside because there's so many people who need to get back into the market. They need to. They don't have a choice. They're going to underperform, right? Another thing came out today, this morning. I wonder if I can show you guys. It showed that some of the funds out there, the sort of stock picking funds, have underperformed the worst in decades. In decades. You think there's some people who are wrong here and need to get back in towards the end of the year? Probably. So my base case is still game on, people. Hopefully this regional banking situation doesn't get too much worse. I wouldn't bet on it sorting itself out immediately, but there are people who are just continually getting this wrong. All these smart people on CNBC, oh my goodness, you should be doing this and that, and I've got a beautiful suit, and I drive a Bentley home, and I enjoy your 1% a year that you're paying me. Guess what? Lowest participation versus the index in decades for funds. In decades. Okay, so this is a market where you've got to be on board with not people who just focus on fees, because that's all these guys care about. Fees, fees, fees. You want to be with people who invest their own money, every trader option pit, who put their own money into every single trade and want to do well for you. That's where you want to be. And right now I'm seeing some interesting opportunities. We got AI still on, but I have moved out of equipment a little bit, out of high beta into a little bit more data, right? So you've heard me talk about Snow, you've heard me talk about Palantir, which is expensive, Datadog I really, really like. Guess what's happened lately? We've seen a bit of a pullback, big pullback in high beta. And I said, get out of high beta on a couple of my shows 2 weeks ago. I said, out of high beta, I'm going from 130% invested to probably 35, 40% cash, I think I said. And I said, I'm out of high beta and I'm getting into IWM, which is now getting affected a bit. So I'm not saying everything was perfectly timed, but I'm not that negative on it, right? I think it's going to struggle just a little as we sort out this situation. But for me, what I see is that volatility has come back. Here's your Soxol, right? That's your 3-time semiconductor. So I had people make a fortune on this, millions. I have clients saying they made millions on this trade that I gave them. But look, now we've got volatility back. That's not the friend of levered products. That is one thing that I teach. I said, listen, I like these levered products when things are relatively stable and going in one direction. Right now we have a return of volatility. That makes them tricky. That makes them a little bit trickier because they get chopped up. We don't have to go into the math of it, but these products, 3 times especially, 5 times, the chop is going to be massive. If you have a choppy market and you've got a 5 times Tesla, that thing in a volatile market is going to get chopped to pieces. So they do not advertise this stuff enough out there, right? They just want you to buy their crap. So this is a market that's more difficult for certain kinds of products, but very, very interesting for other kinds of products. So we're going to be playing, Andrew's going to be going over stuff like this, Mark for sure, and Delta Strike. We're going to be talking about ways to play a compression of volatility because it will come at some point, right? These are nice opportunities. When you get the VIX up to 25, 26, 27, you want to be careful because you don't want it in the 30s. You don't want something severely going wrong. But if they can contain this situation, I think there's some really, really nice plays to be made in that VIX complex, which Andrew is playing like a total pro in weekly profit cycles. He's just, he plays both sides and he's very much focusing on implied volatility. In turbo income, we're killing it as well. We've got positions that have, lately that have made 100, 150%. We had USAR, we had Intel, which everyone called me stupid for. Yeah, they're very quiet now because I made 100 to 150% on positions. There are, we've been playing Snow, we've been playing Palantir. We haven't had a position on, but we played it twice, which was really nice. So it's not about ignoring AI in the least. It's about getting back to a little bit more of the broadening theme. For example, I talked to you guys about the housing market that could get a little bit unfrozen with what's going on in the world. I think you could pretty much bank on a couple more rate cuts. And that's going to be a bit of a Fed put, right? Rate cuts are a Fed put. So unless things start to unravel, as I've described, is always a possibility. Because once you get that snowball going down the hill, it can gather momentum just like it did in April. But I believe that we're going to stabilize things. We've got those rate cuts coming. So far, bank earnings fantastic. Goldman, one of my favorite names. JPM, $9 billion. Mark mentioned the other day, $9 billion in trading profits. Like, are you kidding me? And they're talking about the same things I was talking about a couple months ago in a turbo income and other places on our ticker highlight. I said, listen, Goldman is in all the right places. You're going to have deals. They're already talking about it. They've got deals up the wazoo, IPOs, deals. Think of cost cutting that's happening there. Think of all the productivity benefits. I mean, these positions, that's why I've said all along, I've said money center banks. People said, do you like the other banks? I don't like loans. I don't like regionals. There you go. Regionals taking a crap. I like money center. I like smart people who know how to make money all the time and are not exposed as much to personal loans, to commercial real estate, which is still going to be an awful, awful place to be. It just cannot get out of its own way. It's awful. So you want to be more specific. So in this world of disruption, in this world of everything changing, we're not going to get everything right, but we have to try to think of, well, where are the disruptions? And the fact is, we're going to have the rich and the poor are going to do this. And that's why I always say, if the rich don't care about everybody else, they don't care. They tell you how wonderful AI is, and we're all going to be we'll have lots of time to do our hobbies because it's going to be an era of abundance from AI. Yeah, that's easy for a billionaire to say, not for regular people. So I always say, listen, if you're not trading, if you're not investing in the companies that are disrupting the world, you might be coming up, you might be missing out on an opportunity. The rich don't care. And the market is more geared towards the wealthy all the time. Look at retirees, look at asset holders. They are a much bigger percentage of consumerism than they used to be. The poor are being left behind. It's terrible to say. And people don't care about them. They want their stocks to go up. And that is what the Fed is going to do, despite that is what the powers that be are going to ensure, because they're in deep anyway. How are you going to unravel what you've created? A world of debt, money printing, stimulus of all kinds. How are you going to unravel that? Maybe they would have done that in the 70s and 80s. Nobody takes their medicine anymore. You think Nancy Pelosi wants to lose a fortune? No, maybe not a great example, but people who are involved, no different. They do not want to lose a fortune. So everyone, I got to go. Ryan's going to put in my my link. We just did a lifetime upgrade as well for Turbo Income. And I said, listen, you upgrade to that, you're going to get me forever like old luggage. You know the luggage you see in the back of your closet? You're like, I have no clue what to do with that, but I am going to be much better than dusty old luggage. I promise you, you can never get rid of me. I'm going to help you make money and achieve the success that you deserve and that the powers don't want you to have. We're going to play their game and jump on board. So thanks everybody for showing up today. Take a look at Turbo Income. Yeah, exactly, Vicky. Lifetime, whether you like it or not, Jose, I am going to give you everything. I'm going to just strip down and you're going to get everything. I'm warning you, this is going to be really ugly. You're going to be in my hot tub with me. You're going to be, okay, this is getting weird. But anyway, everybody have a wonderful day. Happy trading and investing. Get to your next class. We have a full schedule of amazing stuff, paid, free, all kinds of stuff of Option Pit. We are giving you everything we've got with all of our hearts, and we'll see you next time.